Hello, everybody. Welcome to our presentation, Climate Protection with Bleak Clothing and ClimatePartner. We have a short case study today for you and of a climate neutral outdoor jacket, which was created by Bleak Clothing, and we support it in the field of climate protection. My name is Jan Schüssler. I'm the head of key account management at ClimatePartner. ClimatePartner is a solution provider in the field of climate protection, and I would also like to introduce to you Lena Hoffmann from Bleak Clothing. Maybe you want to say a few words about you, Lena?
Thank you, Jan. Hello, my name is Lena Hoffmann. I'm from Bleak Clothing, and I'm in charge for design and product development at Bleak. We are a company existing since 2008 now. We are producing sustainable goods, mainly in the street and sportswear sector. So since 2008, we try to do as sustainable products as possible in different ways. And one way we did choose to go together with ClimatePartner since 3 years now is to compensate those products.
Thanks, Lena. We're all facing dramatic changes at the moment, and we can see it. We are not all together at performance days nowadays and meet in person, but we are, most of us, probably at the home office. And but what we need to keep in mind, despite Corona, there are also challenges ahead which need to stay on our agenda. What we can see here in this chart is the reason why we are here today and talking about climate change. This is the reason why there was a Kyoto Protocol. This is the reason why there was a Paris Climate Agreement. We as humans realized that a world based on burning fossil fuels, and this is the time from 1850 until now, where we started to use fossil fuels and make it useful for us to for production, for transportation, for our everyday life. But we realized that burning fossil fuels will lead in the future to a less lively world, and we need to face this challenge. So this is actually the reason why we are here, why companies like ClimatePartner exist, and why you are interested in the whole topic of climate protection. It is really an urgent challenge, and if we wouldn't have had Corona, I would still say it's the most urgent challenge. It's one of the biggest challenges which lie ahead. What does it mean for you as a person, but especially today for you as a company? Companies are increasingly expected to engage in climate protection. It's not just a field for states, for governments, or for you as a private person. It is really a topic for companies nowadays. When I talked before about Kyoto Protocol or Paris Climate Agreement, this is an agreement where all states said, okay, we want to be engaged in climate protection. We don't want that the temperature rise will be above 1.5 or 2%, 2 degrees compared to 1850. What you will see in the next step, if it hasn't been done in your country already, you will see pressure from regulation. You will see CSR directives. You will see a national law. In Germany, we had the renewable energy law, Erneuerbare Energiengesetz, and so on. There will be more and more laws where companies will be pushed in a way to be engaged more in climate protection. What we also see from financial markets and investors, that ESG will be a mandatory indicator for many investors to give money to your company. We can see institutional investors, large corporations, large investors who say the companies where I'm investing in, they need to have climate protection on their agenda. And you can have your opinion whatsoever about BlackRock and Larry Fink. but he said climate crisis will reshape finance. And he had an annual letter to chief executives where Mr. Fink said his firm would avoid investments in companies that present a high sustainability related risk. So if you want to have money in the future, especially if large amounts of money, you need to be engaged in climate protection. What we can also see is industry initiatives, and in some parts climate protection is a mandatory requirement for you to sell your products. We have seen the Fashion Charter for climate action. This is under the auspices of UN Climate Change. Fashion stakeholders worked during 2018 to identify ways in which the broader textile industry, clothing and fashion industry can move towards a holistic commitment to climate action. And this is where the Fashion Industry Charter for Climate Action was announced, and which contains the vision to achieve a net zero emission textile industry by 2050. We also see the Sustainable Apparel Coalition as one initiative, also in this way, maybe a bit broader focus on sustainability, but also on climate protection. And sometimes when you want to sell your products, especially to governments, it's partially mandatory requirement. If you want to sell to certain customers, carbon neutral products have become a tender criterion. So you can see in different ways that there will be pressure from law, from financial markets, but also from within competition and within the market. But what you can also see, it's not you're not just only pushed there, but you will also be pulled by the consumers and the public opinion. There's definitely a trend towards sustainable consumption. If you just look at some of the buzzwords of our time, like natural, fair, sustainable, organic, regional production, renewable energy, and also carbon neutrality or climate neutrality, you can see that there's a trend towards sustainable consumption. But what is really important, that transparency is expected. If you want to engage in these fields, it's not that you write it on your product, but you have to live like it, and your brand has to be accepted to stand for these words, that they're not just words, but that they're filled with what's behind it. And the consumer is willing to award the engagement in sustainability and climate protection, but only if it's done and communicated in a very transparent and reliable way. And we have seen this with Bleed, and Lena will talk a bit about it later, about what they have done as a brand in this field, and how much or how it's rewarded by their customers. If we talk about climate protection and companies, the question is, how is it done? And we as ClimatePartner defined 5 steps to protect the climate. The first 2 steps are the steps to quantify, to calculate the so-called corporate carbon footprint and product carbon footprint. If you want to know what your emissions are, in the first step, you need to calculate, and this is what we do together with you, together with companies. We have a look at the company carbon footprint, the corporate carbon footprint, and in the next step, have a look at your product carbon footprint. Once you have worked this out and see what your emissions are, you can see where the screws are, and where you can see where can you avoid and where can you reduce. But you need to do these first 2 steps in order to see what are the important fields in your carbon footprint. You can then see and make decisions in which way can you produce smarter. You can see, maybe I have other options concerning traveling, or maybe you can see, traveling is not the biggest contributor of our carbon balance. It's in a different field. What is always really important is to use renewable energy in order to lower your carbon footprint. And then the next thing is, what can you do differently in designing your product? But you can only do this if you have done the calculation before. If you can see material A is better than material B, or if you can see what implications your production process will have on your carbon balance. And these are the first three important steps: quantify, and then from this carbon balance, see where you can do something differently. But today, where we will always come to is that there will be unavoidable emissions. There are no products which are completely carbon-free, where you have no emissions. This is not possible at the moment, especially then when it comes to transportation. You can maybe have 100% renewable energy when producing your product, but everything which has to be transported, there will be emissions. And therefore, what is really important also today to keep the balance in the atmosphere is to support carbon offset projects. When you can see you did your carbon balance, you had a look where you can avoid and reduce, you have unavoidable emissions, and what to do with this. And there are projects somewhere in the world that need extra funding in order to protect the climate, so-called carbon offset projects, and you can support these projects, and they will save the same amount of the emissions which have occurred during your production process somewhere in the world, and you can reduce them somewhere else in the world, and so you can balance it out and bring a climate neutral product to the market, or become climate neutral as a company. And this is really important to do it now, and not just wait until the next 10 or 20 years. But a lot of areas in Brazil, rainforests need to be protected, for example. We need, in a large scale worldwide, we need renewable energy. And those renewable energy projects need extra funding, especially in developing countries where you don't have in every country the funding by the state. They need extra funding, and this funding can come from you as a company. And the last and fifth step, communication, is for us also really important. When you do this, it's at the beginning, it's work. You need to do your carbon balance. You probably take some money and see where you can avoid and reduce. Maybe you buy renewable energy, which is a bit more expensive than just normal electricity, and you're supporting carbon offset projects. Then it's really important for us to also communicate it to all of your stakeholders in order for transparent communication, and that the customer can see, okay, I have a company which is serious about this topic, and I reward it because I want to buy their products. And this is for us the 5 steps, and we want to look into the 5 steps today together with Lena and show you how all of this can be done. So what is the first step? If we talk about calculation, maybe the carbon footprint of a company is determined in 5 steps. When we do a calculation, there's also reporting standard, just like you have a reporting standard when you do your balance, like IFRS. There's also a reporting standard in the field of greenhouse gases, the so-called Greenhouse Gas Protocol Corporate Accounting and Reporting Standard. And this is where with this standard we do the carbon footprint of a company. In the first step, you define system boundaries. You say what you want to look at. Also the organizational but operational boundaries. Do we want to look at just our headquarters? Do we want to look at the whole production process? There are various ways how to do your carbon balance. So therefore, it's important to define it at the beginning and see where your focus will be in this calculation. Within the defined system boundaries, you will collect the consumption data of the previous year in order to translate it into CO2. So what you do, you collect consumption data, and what we do as ClimatePartner, we research emission factors and we calculate the carbon emissions of your company. And at the end, you will get a document and where you can see all the results of your carbon balance. Every CO2 balance is based on the data on the emergence of greenhouse gas emissions. So there is, I said before, we do it according to the greenhouse gas protocol. And in the greenhouse gas protocol, you have different scopes defined. You have the scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. And many companies that already have done the carbon balance probably just had a look at the scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. Scope 1 emissions are self-regulated emissions where you as a company directly emit greenhouse gases from your company facilities, from company vehicles. So everywhere where you burn directly fossil fuels as a company, this is balanced under scope 1. Scope 2 is where you balance your purchased energy. Indirect emissions, which where, for example, the provider of your energy provider has burned fossil fuels and is giving you energy. This will be balanced under scope 2. And all upstream and downstream emissions from transportation, from any third party, will be balanced under scope 3. And most emissions in your corporate carbon footprint will be under scope 3. So if you just have a look under scope 1 and scope 2, then you will just have a small part of the overall balance of your company. And therefore, for us, it's really important to have all 3 scopes into your carbon balance. When we also look at the company, but also at the products, there are 3 different approaches how we can determine a carbon footprint of product. So the first approach would be results. CCF stands for corporate carbon footprint. So the result is a corporate carbon footprint which includes all product specific emissions. So you're collecting purchasing data from across the company. You look at all materials which you're using, all packaging, all logistics of everything which you are producing or which you let produce somewhere else, which you are selling. So if you're, for example, from a producer of jackets, you look at all jackets that you're doing, not just one specific one. After you're offsetting all emissions, you can call your company carbon neutral along with all of the products which you are selling. The second approach, and this is also the approach which was done with Bleed, is that you're looking at your corporate carbon footprint, excluding product-specific emissions. In this case, Bleed is not producing directly, but they will have it produced in various production sites all over the world by a third company. They're doing design and sell the products. So we have had a look at their corporate carbon footprint, and then with different products, we did product-specific product carbon footprints. That's what PCF stands for. So we have in the first step, did the carbon balance of the company, but the company just seen without the products and the packaging and the logistics, just more or less the overhead emissions, and then added for different types of products where they wanted to have a look at. We calculated the carbon footprint of each product. So overall, the company, Bleed, as a company, with all of their employees, they are acting as a carbon neutral company, and then each product where they did a carbon offset, they can bring into the market as carbon neutral product. The third approach is you can start just with a product carbon footprint. If you want to just have a first look at how how all of this works, or if you don't have at the moment the time, or you want to really quick have a look at one certain product, we can start also just with one product, have a look there. So we have a detailed collection of the parts of the product, of the materials, of the production process, and you can then not be in the market as a carbon neutral company, but this one specific product can be carbon neutral. So these are different approaches how to do. And this is also mainly important for companies that are not producing themselves, but which are selling the products in the market, and the production is taking place by a third party, which is a lot of times which is done in the textile industry. So you can start with a holistic approach, or on a smaller scale basis. So what we've done is we calculated the corporate carbon footprint of Bleed in this specific project. They did get documentation of the results, and I would like to hand over to Lena. Today we want to have a look at the carbon neutral jacket from them, not so much at the corporate carbon footprint, but today at the product. And maybe Lena can tell a bit about the product, and also about the design process, and what they have done differently at Bleed.
Thank you. Yes, I try to give you a short overview on how we work, which steps we take to do our sustainable products. So I want to start with the designing and product development process we have chosen, because of course compensating is very important and shouldn't be kept out anymore, but we can already start a bit earlier after calculating the footprint of our products. We have the chance to go further and already start at the beginning to reduce the carbon. So yeah, I've put there some different points where you can pick and to start changing your product. So the first step actually is to already choose sustainable materials, because we found out, and that's what we will see on the further charts, that the material impact is already quite big on the products. So it's a good step to check materials and to check footprints of different materials before you're designing the product. Another step you can take is to choose material varietal purity as far as possible to enable afterlife reuse of products, because it's also a step that you can see on the carbon footprint of a whole product that can be reduced, because as far as the materials are recyclable and reusable, you can reduce it a lot. Another step is to keep transportation routes in between production steps as short as possible. That means, for example, you don't take a material from Asia, go to Europe for confection, bring it back to Asia for further steps, and then put it back to Europe for selling it, and selling it maybe or again to Asia or some far markets. To keep those transportation routes in between as short as possible already. Another important step is to choose sustainable manufacturing processes, as also the processes have a lot of differences in how they are chosen. For example, water consumption, energy consumption, how often a garment is treated, those kind of steps. Yeah, another important point is to design timeless products, as the life cycle of a product is also a very important point. And what comes with timeless products is to produce high quality products that last longer than just one season, with a good quality, long durability, on which you have a lot of fun for a lot of time. So those are some steps you can already choose in design process to reduce. Can you please skip? Thank you. So what does Bleed to become more eco and climate friendly? Those are the most important steps we try to do already in the designing and product development in the design product development, yes, and we want to show it again on the fully recycled and climate neutral outer jacket. That was the first project we did together with ClimatePartner. We've chosen a product with a quite big climate footprint. So actually we've chosen our product with the biggest climate footprint we have and try to reduce as good as possible after having the calculation from ClimatePartner, and thus do the steps I already explained in the chart before, also on this product. So for example, for this jacket, we used a 100% recycled polyester fabric from Sympatex. So the upper fabric and the membrane, it's all recycled and in material wired purity. So this means this jacket can already also be recycled after use. It's completely toxic free, so this also means the impregnation is without PFCs and the membrane without PTFE, so no fluorocarbons are used on this product that could harm nature or our people, of course. In addition, we have chosen a minimal waste shipping on this product, what means there's no plastic garbage in the package, so no poly bags or anything on shipment, so the end customer doesn't have to handle this problem in how to recycle this kind of package as well. And we have a partnership with Wear2Wear that was developed by Sympatex, our partner for the materials, what provides us the possibility to recycle this product at the end of the life cycle. So this already fits quite well, and the most positive add-on on top is that we can compensate this product together with ClimatePartner.
Yes, thank you, Lena. Maybe you want to, you said it before that the material has probably the biggest impact. We want to have a look at the detailed numbers of the product. And you can see Bleed really does a lot in the beginning. They do a lot in the design process and by choosing the materials, but nevertheless, you still have emissions of 25 kilogram of CO2 by producing this jacket and bring it to the customer. So
yes. Sorry, I just want to say one more thing, and that's important thing. Even if you try or you can reduce already a lot, there are parts that can't be reduced anymore, and that's where ClimatePartner can act and can help to make the product better.
Thank you, Lena. What you can see here in the fabric, so 63% of the material is in the fabric or the raw material. So the zippers and buttons didn't really play a role. Really, what was the main impact was the fabric from Sympatex, and there you can already choose or have chosen the fabric with the lowest carbon footprint. If you choose a different type of fabric, which is not 100% recycled material or has more layers, then of course the carbon footprint is higher and can be up to let's say here not 14 but 25 kilogram of CO2. So in this phase you already have a lot of impact on what to choose, what material to choose. And we from ClimatePartner work together with Sympatex, and that's how we also met Bleed, where you can see where how important it is to have a good network in this area of climate protection. And we worked together with Sympatex, and at the beginning the process was we calculated for each fabric, each different type of fabric, the carbon footprint, and therefore it is possible for companies like Bleed to choose a fabric with a low carbon footprint. It was in this case, it was also the fabric they have chosen before because they looked at the 100% recycled fabric, but before it was just a feeling. It was not just that you choose because you have the numbers ready, and this is an important step in what you can do a calculation, or when you're a producer or do a calculation of your fabrics, and then you can you have possibilities for your customers to choose the more climate-friendly product. What you can also see is that the logistics plays quite a role, and there it's important not only how far away it is, but more or less if it's transported by air or by ship. And ship would have a much lower carbon footprint. And this is something what you can realize when you do a carbon balance and see, do I need it in just a couple of days? Do I need my products, or can I do kind of plan a bit ahead and have a transport by ship? And this is but also something where we cannot say from ClimatePartner do this or do that, because you have to make the decision based on your company, based on your customers, and see how do you bring your products into the market, how quick does it have to be. But what we can show you is in which area of your carbon footprint or in which area of your production process you will have what kind of impact. And you can see also here with packaging has a really low income, because it was also before, like Bleed said, because it was optimized already. And you can see, okay, packaging will just has a minor impact. For some products, packaging really has a larger impact, not just 0.9%. And this is what you can, where you can have a look at when you do a carbon balance. This is of course compromised. We can when we do work with other companies or for Bleed, we provided of course more insights, but this is just for you to have a view on in which area of the production process, in this case of Bleed, are what kind of emissions. And what you can see here, even a company like Bleed, they have unavoidable emissions, and therefore it's really important when we have a look at the 5 steps again. Of course, do the calculation, see where can avoid and reduce in the whole process, but then also do the carbon offset and do a transparent communication. And this is really important for us, that only the combination of avoidance, reduction, and carbon offsetting can achieve effective climate protection. If you look at this chart, you can see we're starting here in this year, and you have this amount of emissions that would correspond to this amount of carbon offset. And the goal should be to compensate less and less in the future. But the goal always have to be not to just compensate in 2030 when you reduce all avoidable and reducible emissions and just have this amount of unavoidable emissions, but because that would mean in the meantime all of these emissions are in the atmosphere and you didn't support any projects. Therefore, it's really important, look that you are working on your carbon footprint, do your carbon balance, but from just the start, support projects that need financial support. And when you bring a carbon neutral product to the market, you are supporting these projects, and you can balance the emissions in the atmosphere. How is it done directly? You have a carbon footprint, you have different carbon offset project. The carbon offset project can be a renewable energy project, but could also be protection of forests, but it can also be clean drinking water, which means that in this area in Africa, for example, you have clean drinking water, and through this project, you don't have to burn wood and cook and boil the water in order to make it drinkable, but you have directly some kind of possibilities to have clean drinking water and don't have to burn the woods and set free greenhouse gases. That would be carbon offset project. And what you can do, you have a carbon footprint, you have this project, and you can become climate neutral product company, and you can balance it out. To say products and organizations are climate neutral if the carbon footprint was calculated and offset via carbon offset projects. What we did in order to bring it transparently to the customers, We created a label which you can bring onto your website, which you can bring onto your products, and you have an individual ID number. And the QR code or the individual ID number will lead to a landing page where you can see what was done. This is the landing page of Bleed Clothing, where you can see you have pictures of Bleed and of the product. You can see how much carbon has been offset, and here it's not just the jacket, but under this account of Bleed we have all kinds of climate neutral products and activities. The company's climate neutral, jackets are climate neutral, they have shoes where they did this. So we added all emissions up. So far 100,000 kilograms CO2 have been offset, and you get, as a customer, you get more information about the project which was supported. When you click on one of the pictures, you can see pictures of the project, you can see a description of the project, and you can see how does forest protection help fight global warming. Maybe Lena, you want to add some words why you chose this project for you?
Of course. So ClimatePartner has a great variety of different projects. We've chosen a project in Kenya so far, as it fits best with Bleed. As we are also a vegan brand, we've chosen a project where also animal and protection is a hot, most important topic. So it's a project that helps people and animals and plants in this region. Right.
Thanks, Sis. And you can use all of these pictures as well for your communication, which is in our way really important to bring a link from this project to your company. Like Lena said, they're a vegan brand. That's why they've chosen this product, and you can also show your customers what was done in this project. You can also you will get a certificate from us which states that this exact amount of emissions have been offset with this project. And this is what our contribution to transparency and how we help you to communicate with your customers and your stakeholders. What is also important is that with a effective and trustworthy communication of your commitment to climate protection, this helps to promote your brand. We also help you to promote your brand, and we do this together with Bleed. You can see we go much further. This is a screenshot of the website from Bleed, where they are talking about what they have done differently when designing, especially this jacket, this climate neutral jacket. And it's the world's first fully recycled and climate neutral jacket, and it's important to communicate. What we did is we also did a communication on the ClimatePartner side to see Sympatex and Bleed, how does this lead to more climate protection, so that the customer can see what was done. So climate neutrality must become an integrated part in your communication, not something which is just on the side. If it's within your company's DNA and you bring climate protection right there, then it's something which is important and where you can differentiate in the market, and where your customers really see, and where customers are trusting you as a brand. But what is also, and this is really important for us as a company which is engaged in climate protection, if we have companies like Sympatex and Bleed and others that follow, that this will get larger and larger. So if we have one example, maybe one leader up front, and then the next companies will go there, and that you have a network, and we can see this, and this is not just something where one brand should be engaged, but all brands, everybody should be engaged. This will inspire others if somebody sees that you are engaged, and that's why we really also have a focus on communication. It's not just something on the side, but it's something where it's seen, and this is also how climate protection works with one that leads, and then the next come, and then it's getting bigger and bigger, and you're part of an inspiration within the textile industry. You can see this jacket by Bleed. You can just see it here. It was shown by Sympatex CEO Rüdiger Fox at the COP24 in Katowice, where there was the Fashion Charter for Climate Action, where larger brands, you can see here Adidas, Puma, Boss, you can see brands from all over the world, large brands, and which jacket was shown was the one from Bleed, and this is something where you can where it's really important to start, get engaged, and then of course work over the next years to become more climate friendly. And this is what Lena and I wanted to show you today, to show you what you can do when you do bring a climate neutral jacket to the market. It's also important to realize that it's not climate neutral doesn't mean CO2 free, and even if you're working on it, and even if your brand, which is really already thinking about sustainability, thinking about climate protection in the design process, that there are unavoidable emissions, and that it's a process which will take place, which is not something which will be over tomorrow or next year, but it will take some decades for all of us to become more climate friendly, to say, okay, let's start with the calculations, see where we can avoid and reduce. Very important to also support carbon offset projects that lead to a more climate friendly world, that need funding by you. And if you as a company bring a climate neutral product to the market, you're supporting these projects, and then do a good communication about it so that others will follow, and that is not just something which stick to a few brands, but which will be really a topic for everybody. So thank you very much. Thank you also, Lena, for sharing this insight from Bleed with all of us. And yeah, we all hope to meet in person, the latest hopefully next year at the performance days, and that we can get into some kind of interaction. This is a bit always hard just to do it and talk to your computer and don't have all the faces in front of you. I hope that we did or could give you a bit more information about it, and feel free to contact all of us. And yeah, we're happy to assist, and Bleed will be probably happy to talk with all of us, all of you, and share their experiences from the past.
That's it.